It's just past 1 a.m. on March 18th, 1990. The streets of Boston are slowly quieting down after a long night of St. Patrick's Day parties. But inside the Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum, everything seems calm. Too calm. Two security guards are on duty, Rick Abath and his colleague, who'd only been working there for a few months. They're stationed at the front desk, taking turns doing rounds. It's a quiet night. Nothing out of the ordinary. At least, not yet. Then, just before 1:30 a.m., there's a knock at the museum side entrance. Two men in full police uniforms stand outside. They say they're responding to a disturbance. Abath hesitates. No one had called the police. Still, something about the way they speak seems official. He buzzes them in. The moment they step inside, everything changes. "Gentlemen," one of the men says, "we're here to arrest you." Before the guards can react, they're forced against the wall, handcuffed, and led down into the basement. Blindfolded and tied to pipes, they're completely cut off from what's happening upstairs. The museum is now wide open. For the next 81 minutes, the two fake officers move through the darkened galleries with complete control. They're not rushed. They're not panicked. They know exactly what they're looking for. From the Dutch room, they take Rembrandt's only known seascape, the storm on the Sea of Galilee. They cut it straight from its frame. Then they grab Vermeer's A Concert, one of the rarest and most valuable paintings in the world. It's never been seen again. They go room to room, selecting 13 specific pieces, including sketches by Degas, a Chinese vase, and a bronze eagle from atop a Napoleonic flag. It's like they're crossing items off a list. When they're done, they calmly head back to their car, loaded with $500 million worth of art. And just like that, they disappear into the early morning fog. The biggest unsolved art theft in history has just taken place, and no one will even know until the sun comes up. The first shift change was supposed to be routine. Around 8:15 a.m., museum staff arrived expecting a normal Sunday morning. But something was wrong. The front desk was unattended. No one responded on the radio. Then, they noticed the side door was slightly open. Within minutes, staff members called the police. When officers arrived, they began searching the building. And what they found was chilling. In the basement, they discovered the two night guards handcuffed, blindfolded, and clearly shaken. "They tied us up," Rick Abath explained. "Said they were cops. I thought it was just protocol, until they didn't ask for any IDs. Upstairs, the museum was quiet, but it didn't take long to notice what was missing. Several gold frames were empty, still hanging on the walls where masterpieces used to be. The thieves hadn't just removed the art. They had deliberately left the frames behind, as if to mock the museum and the world. Within hours, the FBI arrived on the scene. Special Agent Jeff Kelly, assigned to the case, was blunt. This wasn't amateur work. They knew what they wanted, and they got it. Fast, clean, and gone without a trace. Investigators reviewed what little footage they had. The museum security system, considered outdated even for 1990, hadn't captured much. There were no external cameras, and most internal ones only recorded on VHS. The two men posing as officers hadn't worn masks. That was either recklessly bold or frighteningly confident. What made things worse was how selective the thieves were. They didn't just grab anything of value. They ignored far more expensive items and focused on specific works. That suggested planning. It suggested insider knowledge. There were whispers, even early on, that someone with museum access may have helped, but nothing could be proven. And so, less than 12 hours after the theft, the investigation was already facing an uphill battle. No solid suspects. No fingerprints. No clear motive other than greed. The Gardner Museum had just lost $500 million worth of art, and the only clue was a pair of uniforms, a fake mustache, and two guards who never saw it coming. In the days following the heist, the FBI launched a full-scale investigation. They set up a command post in Boston, combing through every shred of evidence. But the truth was hard to face. The thieves had left almost nothing behind. There were no alarms tripped, no forced entry, no fingerprints, no surveillance footage showing their escape route. For an operation that only took 81 minutes, the job was almost surgical in its precision. This was not some random smash and grab, said one federal agent. They came with a plan and left without hesitation. That kind of discipline usually means professional criminals. The FBI started looking into known art thieves, locally and internationally. They interviewed former employees, ex-security guards, and even people with ties to organized crime in the Northeast. But nothing stuck. Every lead seemed to fizzle out. There was one early theory that caught attention. Some investigators believed the theft may have been orchestrated not to sell the artwork, but to use it as leverage, a bargaining chip in future criminal deals or negotiations for reduced sentences. In the underworld, stolen art has value far beyond money. Meanwhile, the museum was struggling, not just with the loss, but with the attention. Crowds gathered outside daily. News vans camped out along the street. Inside, the empty frames were left hanging on the walls, just as they had been found that morning. It wasn't just a reminder of what was missing. It was a symbol of hope. One day, maybe those paintings would return. It wasn't just a crime against a museum, said Hawley, the museum's director at the time. It was a crime against history, against culture. These were pieces of humanity that belonged to everyone. The public, too, wanted answers. People sent in tips, rumors, even psychic visions. The FBI received thousands of phone calls in the first month alone, but none led to the stolen art or the men who took it. Despite the growing pressure, there was one constant truth. The art had vanished, and whoever took it had done their homework. As weeks turned into months, the FBI's focus shifted toward organized crime. There were whispers, unconfirmed but persistent, that the heist may have been carried out by individuals connected to the Boston Mafia. Some names began circulating, but nothing concrete ever stuck. One of those names was Carmine Romano, a known figure in the art smuggling world. Another was Robert Bobby Donati, someone with both ties to the mob and a fascination with art. Donati was found murdered just a year later, execution style. Some agents believed he had inside knowledge about the heist, maybe even direct involvement. He was the kind of guy who'd pull something like this, said a retired agent who worked the case, and then get himself killed before we could ever talk to him. Despite the promising leads, none of the suspects were ever charged. Most denied everything. Others were long dead, and the art still missing. Then came the calls. Throughout the 1990s, the museum and the FBI received several anonymous messages. One in particular claimed the paintings could be returned for a price. A few negotiations started, but they never led anywhere. The callers would disappear just as quickly as they came. Some messages even included code words or details only the thieves would know. But every time the FBI tried to arrange a drop or trace the contact, the trail would go cold. We had moments where we thought, this is it, we're close, recalled Special Agent Jeff Kelly. And then it would all just fall apart, every single time. Public frustration was building, so was the museum's desperation. In 1997, a $5 million reward was announced. No questions asked, immunity offered. Still, nothing came of it. And yet, one thing was clear. Someone out there knew where the art was. And for some reason, they weren't ready to give it back. Years passed. The empty frames still hung on the museum walls, untouched. Like ghosts of the past, they stared back at visitors as if waiting for their masterpieces to return. In 2013, more than 2 decades after the heist, the FBI made a public statement. Special Agent Richard Delorier stepped in front of the cameras and said something that reignited interest across the world. "We believe we know who is responsible," he said. "The individuals who committed this crime are known to us." But there was a catch. The FBI also confirmed that the 2 main suspects were no longer alive. Their names were never officially released, but it was widely assumed they were connected to Boston's organized crime scene, men with long criminal records and short tempers. If the thieves were dead, that left only one question. Where was the art? The Bureau also revealed something new. They believed the stolen pieces had traveled through various criminal circles over the years. At one point, they were moved through Connecticut. Later, possibly Philadelphia. The trail was faint, but not gone. We're confident some of the artworks were seen in the black market as late as the early 2000s. said one agent familiar with the case. They changed hands. Quietly, carefully, a new theory began to take shape. Maybe the artwork hadn't been destroyed or lost. Maybe it was being hidden, protected, or worse, held for leverage that never came. The museum increased the reward to $10 million. That made it one of the largest private rewards ever offered for stolen art. Still, it wasn't enough. There's a code in the underworld, one retired detective explained. And when it comes to something this big, no one talks, especially if they're afraid of what happens if they do. Even after more than 20 years, the Gardner case remained open, technically unsolved, emotionally unforgettable. And for the families of those involved, the guards, the museum staff, the investigators, the silence was louder than ever. Decades have gone by, but inside the Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum, the walls still tell the same story. The same 13 frames hang empty, untouched since the morning of March 18, 1990. It's a quiet reminder of how close the museum came to losing its soul and never getting it back. Each frame is a promise. These works belong here, and one day they will return. The museum continues to work with the FBI and international authorities. From time to time, new leads surface. A man claims he saw one of the paintings. A woman insists she once held the Vermeer in a private estate overseas. A retired art dealer swears he was offered one of the gas sketches in a parking lot in Florida. But none of it leads to anything solid. And yet, they never stop chasing. Sometimes it feels like we're right on the edge of breaking this, says Special Agent Kelly. And other days, it feels like we're chasing a shadow that's long gone. The case has become more than just a theft. It's a legend, a mystery that blends the worlds of high art and high crime. It has inspired documentaries, books, and even a Netflix series. But for the agents and museum staff still hoping for closure, none of that matters. Not until the paintings come home. In a small office tucked away from the main gallery, there's a binder. Inside are copies of every tip the museum has ever received. Every anonymous letter, every claim and false alarm. And on the cover, written in bold black ink, never give up. The reward still stands. $10 million for information leading directly to the safe return of all 13 works. No questions asked. Full immunity guaranteed. And so the frames remain. Empty but waiting. Just like the people who believe that one day, someone will step forward. That one voice will finally break the silence. Until then, it remains the greatest unsolved art crime in American history, and the most haunting.